Hello, my chicklets. Thank you for stopping by. Today we will be reading day 5 in our Soulmate September series together. In this soulmate story, you can feel your soulmate's emotions. The idea of soulmates had always been an exciting one for Patton. All the stories told of true love, a person to share your life and emotions with. The adults in Patton's life who had found their soulmates said it almost felt like having two souls in your body. They said it was blissful and maddening all at the same time. Patton wanted that, desperately. He wanted to feel like he always had a friend. He wanted to feel like there was another person by his side who could share in his joy and his laughter. But all he ever felt was lonely. Patton didn't have a soulmate. For the longest time, he had thought that his soulmate was younger, that their connection hadn't registered yet. Normally, you didn't feel the connection to your soulmate until you were both 5 or older. But when Patton turned 5, all he felt was loneliness. His parents had reassured him that didn't mean he was soulless. His soulmate might be more reserved or might be younger than him. They tried to console him in any way that a parent could, but Patton still cried his eyes out that night. As the years progressed, he held out hope. Sometimes he would feel the ghost of an emotion that wasn't his, but by the time Patton was in college, he'd come to the conclusion that he didn't have a soulmate. Those passing emotions were just the echoes of a desire that would never be fulfilled. The universe didn't want to give him someone to love. You just have too much love to give. You aren't destined for one person. I'm sure there are plenty of people who are going to need your love, Virgil said, playing with the straw in his cup. At least you don't have this idiot as your soulmate. He jabbed his finger at his soulmate Roman Prince. Hey, I resent that remark. You are lucky to have such an amazing soulmate such as me. Many would be greatly blessed to be in my presence. There was a fond smile on Virgil's face. Yeah, keep saying that. Roman made a noise of offense as he threw a fry at Virgil. Now, kiddos, no fighting. The two were about to wage an all-out fry war when they dropped their hands. Yes, Dad, they said in unison, looking at each other before bursting into laughter. Virgil rolled his eyes and Roman took Virgil's hand to kiss it. I shall yield this fight if you, foul fiend, but mark my words, we will have another. I'm looking forward to it, Prince Hans. For a moment, the two just looked at each other, making sure that this was okay, that the playful banter was just that. Roman smiled a soft smile, and Virgil's shoulders relaxed as his boyfriend made a fake offended noise once again. Then they were back at it. Patton melted at his friend's antics. He smiled, but it was a soft smile, a sad smile. He wanted this. He wanted what they had. He wanted to not feel alone. The feeling had waned and changed over the years, but it was still there, deep in his gut. Patton didn't want to feel the empty pit in his stomach. Virgil had gotten lucky in Patton's mind. The two had been friends for ages, and Patton knew it hadn't always been easy, but things had worked out. Having anxiety and not knowing who his soulmate was difficult on Virgil. He spent years worrying that his anxiety would push his soulmate away, but fate could be kind. When Virgil and Roman first met, Roman already knew how to help with the anxiety attacks. He had spent the years apart learning how to care for his future love. Everything for them had just fallen into place. They still fought. Virgil still had anxiety. But they genuinely loved each other. Why couldn't Patton have that too? Sorry, you two. Looks like this pop star has class. Patton stood up, grabbing his light blue kitten-stamped backpack. He needed to take a step back from their love. He was happy for them, but it stung. Goodbye, Padre. May your journey be swift, safe, and filled with adventure. Yeah, what Prince Knucklehead over here said. Virgil waved Patton off, and Patton couldn't help but smile and return the wave. He could hear the two of them fall into a quiet conversation, but Patton didn't let his smile fall until he was sure they couldn't see. It's okay, Patty. You still have a lot to love, and I'm sure whoever you end up with will still be a wonderful and excellent person. That's if he ended up with anyone. From what he had heard, dating was already hard. Just because you were perfect for someone didn't mean things matched perfectly at first. Virgil and Roman were still working on boundaries. How much harder would it be if he was with someone who wasn't his soulmate? Were there others out there like him that were lonely, that didn't have another half? That if there weren't, what kind of person could he find who wasn't already happy with their soulmate? Patton walked towards his class, adjusting the straps on his backpack. He had to look on the bright side. Just because he had never heard of anyone else who didn't have a soulmate didn't mean they didn't exist. And if he could be a source of support to someone who had been through the same worries as him, then he was happy to be by their side. He tried to keep the smile on his face and the bounce in his step. He was the happy Pappy Patton. He couldn't let something like this get him down. But as he walked through the door of his class, the feeling of guilt and pain doubled. Normally, he loved people. Normally, the loud hum of his class would give him energy. But maybe spending time with Virgil and Roman had made it worse. His smile faltered, and like a snowball falling, his emotions began to spiral. The classroom was already filled, and the noise of everyone there was just too much. At least his seat had been saved. He had an unlikely friend in Logan Serenus, the smartest person in the class. Once Patton was in his seat, he let his shoulders drop, let his hands shake under the desk. He knew Logan could see it, but he hid the signs from everyone else. Patton had felt like this before, all of his joy and happiness leaving his body and sliding into sadness, which eventually dissipated into numbness. Something had been changing recently, though. The sadness sticking around longer rather than turning into numbness. His body seemed to process it better. Maybe he was getting better at handling this. But this time he felt guilt. Deep-seated guilt that he didn't know where it had come from. Was he feeling guilty for thinking about how smart and amazing Logan was? Knowing that Logan had a soulmate out there who was waiting for him? That was probably it. Before Patton could go too deep into exploring this new emotion, he saw a piece of paper slowly being slid onto his desk. Don't be sad, because sad backwards is das, and das not good. He blinked. It was a cute joke. Almost funny if he wasn't in such a mood. But this had come from Logan. The fact that it had come from Logan made it so much more important and impressive. Logan was serious. Logan wore a necktie to college. Logan didn't make jokes. Yet another paper was being slid his way. Are you soup? Because you make me so happy. Though that is an illogical statement, because I am aware that you are not a type of soup. Patton held back a snort, but the small, reserved smile that had crawled its way onto Logan's face showed that he had heard it. This was why he liked Logan, because Logan hated puns, yet here he was passing Patton notes with puns on them just to make him smile. By the look on your face, I assume your mood has lifted? Patton nodded, smiling as he slowly pushed himself up in his seat, finally feeling like he could pay attention to class. Unfortunately, that was right about the time class ended. Hopefully he hadn't missed too much. Patton, I've taken the liberty of copying the notes for this class, Logan said, holding out a set of notes. Patton felt his heart skip a beat, but he knew he couldn't allow that. How could he fight against it, though? Aw, Logan, you're so thoughtful. Well, I would like to discuss something else if you would allow me to walk you to your next class. I feel it is only reasonable that I take responsibility. Responsibility? Patton was confused, but he didn't get a response from Logan as he put the notes in his backpack. So, what did you want to school me on, Teach? Logan was quiet for a moment before straightening his tie. I believe I might have inadvertently hurt you. The look of confusion was obvious on Patton's face, so Logan continued. You are aware that I am the type of person who does extensive research before coming to a conclusion. Yep, you are a very astute. Patton chuckled, and Logan rolled his eyes, but there was a fondness to it. Patton liked that little look of affection, but he had to squash his desire for the time being. Well, I have been conducting an observational study for most of the semester, and you will have to forgive me for not informing you of my intention, but I feared that your knowledge might have tampered with the results of my own study." "I'm sure you had noble reasons, but what were you studying?" Logan took in a deep and shaky breath. "Apologies. Emotions are not the easiest thing for me to handle, and this is certainly an emotional subject." Patton felt a shiver of nervousness run up and down his spine. He didn't know why. He trusted Logan, right? "Patton, I believe you and I are soulmates," Logan finally said, his eyes searching for reaction. Patton opened his mouth, closed it, and then stumbled backwards, sitting on one of the many benches that lined their path. "But I don't have a soulmate." "This is where I believe I may have inadvertently hurt you. My family is stoic, to say the least. We are taught from a young age to control our emotions and not express them. This is for 2 reasons. The first, to make certain our emotions do not influence our business dealings, and the second, to make finding our soulmate easier. But my sister lost her soulmate due to this stoic behavior, and I thought it best I learned to open up." He kept fidgeting, standing far enough from Patton that Patton wouldn't feel trapped. "I was hoping that I could confront you with this after I'd worked with a therapist, made myself more open, but today I could feel everything, and I could see my guilt making your day worse. If you would allow, I would prefer us work on this together, rather than you being forced to go at this alone." Just give me a sec, okay?" Patton said, trying to wrap his mind around this. He was ecstatic. He had a soulmate, but what if this was a cruel joke? But Logan didn't seem like the type. Patton curled up a bit, and Logan began to kneel down slowly, opening and shutting his mouth a few times as he fought to find the right words to say. After a moment, he placed a hand on Patton's. "If you will have me, you don't have to be alone anymore." That was all it took for Patton to fling himself around Logan in a hug and hold him tight. "Okay, let's do this together." Thank you for listening. Again, this story was Together. I do hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful day.